My name is Ralph Klewitz. My research begins with a question that emerged from my artistic practice. How does artistic identity take shape within the movements of creating, reflecting on, and interpreting artworks? Rather than treating identity as something that must be defined in advance, my work approaches it as something that becomes thinkable through artistic inquiry. The book I'm presenting today develops a framework that integrates artist identity construction, autoethnography, narrative inquiry, and the Socratic method. These elements do not form a theoretical layer applied to practice. They arise from within it. Autoethnography positions my practice as both method and site of research, allowing artistic decisions, reflections, and interpretations to be examined from lived experience. The Socratic method sustains the inquiry by using questions to unsettle assumptions and activate reflection. Through these movements, identity becomes something that can be articulated, revised, and transformed. What is transformed is not the artwork alone, but the artist's capacity to recognize how practice, thought, and interpretation co-produce who they are becoming. The framework shows that artistic practice is not separate from thought. Making, reflecting, and articulating shape one another. Identity is not a precondition for artistic action, it emerges through engagement with practice. The book unfolds across 4 interconnected parts: creation, interpretation, transformation, and speculation. Creation. The first part examines how artworks come into being through intuitive acts and rational decisions. Some decisions arise before they can be explained, while others are consciously reasoned as the work unfolds. This aligns with Bergson's understanding of intuition and temporal becoming, where understanding follows actions rather than precedes it. Artists are often encouraged to define who they are before they begin to work, as if identity were a prerequisite to creativity. My practice challenges this assumption. Identity becomes perceptible only when artists reflect on what they have done and consider how their decisions relate to their position, motivations, and artistic direction. Identity does not guide the making process. It emerges through it. Interpretation. The second part examines how meaning develops once artworks exist in the world. Interpretation is not treated as an act of uncovering a fixed message, but as an engagement that takes place through the work, the artist, the audience, and the context in which the artwork circulates. Here, Derrida and Barthes become important. Their ideas unsettle expectations of stable meaning and fixed authorship. Rather than determining how an artwork should be understood, the artist becomes one voice within an ongoing exchange. Authorship is reclaimed not as authority, but as participation. Meaning develops through interaction. This interpretive movement has consequences for identity. As artworks are revisited, they reposition the artist in relation to intention, context, and reception. Interpretation shows how identity takes form through the shifting relations that artworks produce, positioning the artist differently each time the work is engaged. Identity becomes a living construct shaped by the shifting meanings artworks produce over time. Identity as method. As these movements accumulate, identity becomes methodological. It does not appear all at once. It unfolds through a circle. Creation leads to reflection, reflection leads to narrative, narrative leads to identity, identity informs further creation. This resembles a hermeneutic circle in which understanding and being continually shape one another. Identity is enacted rather than possessed. It is produced through inquiry rather than discovered intact. Throughout the book, I pose 321 questions that originated within my practice. These questions are not explanatory devices. They extend the inquiry. They enable readers to test their assumptions, articulate their positions, and recognize how identity evolves in relation to creative action. We do not make art because we already know who we are. We make art to understand who we are becoming. Example from practice. To illustrate, consider WZ15 Mont 12 2010. When I created this work, I acted through a combination of intuitive impulses and conscious decisions. Only later did reflection reveal how these acts pointed toward emerging understandings of my position as an artist. The work did not express an identity I already had. It created the conditions through which identity became available for interpretation. Returning to this artwork has made visible how my thinking has changed, demonstrating that identity evolves through the reflective engagement artworks provoke. Transformation. Identity becomes transformative when it begins to orient artistic action. Identity does not determine outcomes, nor does it eliminate uncertainty, intuition, or unforeseen circumstances. It becomes a resource that enables artists to navigate them. As identity gains clarity through reflection, meaning becomes easier to engage with, inviting audiences into the discourse of the work as participants rather than recipients. Reflection strengthens how artists communicate their work, expanding the range of those who can meaningfully engage with it. Speculation. The final part explores how artistic identity may unfold when authorship and agency are not solely human. Artificial intelligence introduces new modes of collaboration, interpretation, and authorship that decenter the human and position identity within a post-human field of relations. AI does not replace creativity. It amplifies the need for reflection. Artists must decide how their intentions and narratives intersect with machine-generated possibilities. In this speculative horizon, identity becomes a negotiation between human judgment and computational suggestion, neither surrendered nor secured. Identity continues to unfold. The argument. Identity is emergent rather than inherent. It is constructed through inquiry rather than discovered intact. It evolves through practice rather than preceding it. Identity is not something we have. Identity is something we do. Through practice and reflection, artists generate knowledge and form artistic identities. This brings epistemology and ontology into a single movement where knowing and becoming unfold together. Thank you.